Kelly, how do you feel when somebody says that women are beauty objects?
Um, it hurts, but we are beautiful. Every woman is.
Why does it hurt?
I'm definitely a feminist. But I'm not like one of those, ones that want to dominate and use the term dominate outside the
Yeah.
bedroom. But I'm definitely, I believe, you know, women have gotten a bad rap for a long time. And the statistics that you gave me earlier were sad. I didn't know them. Um,
Which
about the
ones?
marriage lasting, but
Okay.
very eye-opening and very, obviously I think two people that want to make that commitment should really discuss it and talk about it before they jump into it, because again, all these
Let me
people
just take you back to the women are beauty objects and that
oh
it
yeah,
hurts. Like,
sorry.
why does that hurt you?
um it hurts because people think it's a compliment. I've had some guys, kind of throw it at me or whatever, and I'm like,
Mm.
that's not a compliment. You're basically like, it's, yeah, okay, thank you for calling me beautiful or whatever, but it's like you could have said that in a different way. Than I'm an object. I'm no one's object. I'm or possession or whatever.
Mm.
Like, I am a living human being just like you.
How does it sit with you, Salma, if I were to say that women are beauty objects?
Um, it's so funny you asked that question the minute that, because that was one of the moments where I was like, "Yep, I'm going to go on this podcast because I want to talk about that."
Okay.
But to the way that you were posing it in the original podcast I was listening to,
Mm-hmm.
I understand what you're saying, and to an extent, I agree. I guess that's a very cryptic way of answering that question. I cryptically agree, because then you say in the return of that, men are success objects, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
So then I guess what I was dying to pose, this one of the questions I was going to pose was to you was, if, if a man, if you're with if Gia and her husband, God forbid, they've been together for, almost like over 20 years, they're in deep and strong, and let's pretend he was the breadwinner from the get and successful, so on and so forth. All of a sudden, he loses all of his income, his life shatters, like just financially, just poof, all the success out the window. And then Gia were to decide to leave that relationship. What is Gia called? Instantly.
woman.
Because that's a naive answer, because the reality is she's called a gold digger because she was only after him
Sorry.
for the money, correct?
I'm
If the minute it
I'm a
got
little bit
tough,
confused
Gia
here.
left, wouldn't she be considered a gold digger?
I've never heard that, but possibly by some cruel people or guys. But honestly, if you love that person so much, you would not leave them. I'm not saying she would be a good. I'm not even.
Oh
saying
no,
Well,
I'm posing the
I'm just
question to
saying.
the men.
Yeah, well,
What
Salma,
would they
that brings you back to the distilled soundbite of women don't care about men's struggles. They hang out at the finish line and they pick the winner, right? So women don't have they don't have a lot of tolerance for a guy that can't sort it out. I think they'll have patience for setbacks, failures, stand by his side, depending on the type of relationship they have. And I don't want to speak for GM. I'm sure that she could speak for herself, and I want to hear from her as well. But generally speaking, if the guy can't get it together, the clock is ticking down to the end of that relationship at some point, especially if she has options, right? Like, if she's attractive and she has options out in the world and he can't figure it out, that's one of the reasons why women will untie the knot and leave a marriage, right?
So in your
if he can't
perspective,
sort it out.
in that circumstance, should the female, if the guy just lost everything and is kind of scratching at the cardboard box, unable to get out in that moment?
Well, she's not digging any gold if she's leaving. She's
I'm
getting out of a
meaning,
bad situation.
would you be like, no, you would fully expect her to leave, correct? Based off of your assumption of women, you would expect her fully to leave.
Yeah, that's why I tell men to chase excellence, to get their lives sorted out and squared away, so that they've got the financial resources and the network and the social influence and the captivation to keep a woman around, because women don't care about men's struggles. Like, they do have a certain degree of patience, but the clock ticks down to the end of the relationship at some point if they can't figure it out. Gia, she's basically posing the question in your relationship. What are your thoughts on that?
If a woman left a man because he lost everything, absolutely, she's going to be called a gold digger. I agree with you on that. That's what typically happens. When I met my husband, he was not in a good space, had really bad credit. His ex basically, long story short, he was in a very, very bad spot. And I came in, cleaned up his credit, you know, bought a home, got him out of the space that he was, adopted his son, you know, got him back to square one so, you know, he could pursue what he wanted to do.
You love her.
You know, and it's never been a matter of money for me because I came in very financially, you know, I had my first job at age 10, had my first house at 17. I've been working, I'm a little bit of a worker bee. But long story short, I think that, yes, if a woman does leave a man in the middle of a relationship after, you know, he's lost everything, I would consider her a gold digger because that's why she was there. There's no real, you know, connection past that, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, there'd be like that negative
And
association.
I wouldn't. Like, I would just look at that as,
hypergamy.
It was bound to happen.
Okay, so then you wouldn't, because the question more or less was directing towards the gentleman here of what your interpretation of that would be.
Not
But
everybody thinks like me, though, Salma. Like, I have a very different perspective than most men.
Oh,
I think
I've seen
society and
that.
culture, to some degree, would probably like see it from the perspective of, oh, well, she was only there for the money, or she was just a gold digger and what fell apart. But I would just look at it from the perspective, well, that's just in female nature, right? You know, they're not akin to stick around if a guy can't figure it out. Like, she's got like women have sort of deadlines in their heads. You know, they set sort of like clocks. You know, well, if he can't do it by this date, if he doesn't propose to me by this date, if he can't get out of debt by this date, or if he can't dig out of this hole by a certain period of time, then I got to figure out, you know, some other options. Kelly, you're shaking your head left and right. Why?
Because I don't believe that. I feel like
Believe what part of it?
pretty much all of it. I mean, I hate to say it, sorry, but it's just, if your partner loses everything, then I would do just like what Gia said. Like, that's amazing. She loves this man so much that she stepped up and she, you know, took care of him and like nurtured him. And that's how I believe. Like, if my man loses everything, and then I'm gonna step up and do my part in order for him to get his shit out. Yes, we have time. I mean, sort of timelines, but I mean,
well,
but there's going to be a point where you no longer are going to put your best foot forward because that guy's not going to figure it out, or he's not going to try to figure it out.
I can prove that virtue right now that you're signaling right now, Kelly, completely wrong. And I'm not trying to do this on the spot to make you look bad, but you left a guy that was a bum that was drunk on the street at 4 o'clock in the morning because he couldn't fix his shit. Right. So to say that, you know, I'll just stay with him till the bitter end because of love, like that feeling is, it's nice to state, and it's what we've been basically hammered into our psyche and our ego for years and years to say and do. But the reality of behavior is different from what we state. And I think that one of the things that I've been known for stating over and over again to guys is watch the behaviors. And it's not just women, it's watch the behaviors of people in general and what they do and how they respond to certain scenarios. Don't believe what they say. Go ahead.
I've never mentioned that I left him because he couldn't get his shit together. That was not the reason I left him.
Why'd you leave him?
Yeah, I did not say that ever.
Okay, so why'd you leave him then?
I left him because I mean, I just couldn't take it anymore. That's not leave because he couldn't get his shit together, because his shit's still not together. It wasn't when I first met him. But I stuck around and I mean, there's no timeline on it. I just had enough. I hit my breaking point. I thought to myself, if my dad
you're
was
literally saying
that's
what I
what
just
we're
said.
saying. Everyone reaches their breaking point. You found yours. That's all we're saying.
And I just wanted to correct that. I never said it was because he couldn't get his shit together. That's
what I'm saying.
But
I'm just making the observation,
everybody's
holding up
got
a
a
mirror
timeline
and just reflecting back what I saw. Right.
I think everyone in the world could say there's a point of diminishing returns, of course, but I think Gia is literally the most beautiful example of a contradiction to what that soundbite is that you say, Rich, where it's a girl is always just waiting at the finish line. Gia and her example is literally the exact contradiction of that.
But I think that even Gia would admit that there
would
be a timeline for her to like, you know, if it took her 2 or 3 years to fix all of that, if that ended up taking 6, 7, 8, 9 years, there would have come a point in her mind, I would imagine, and I want her to speak for herself, obviously, but where she would have gotten to, fuck this, I'm out. Right, Gia? Or am I wrong? You know?
Yes, absolutely. You're right. You can't make changes, real impact in our society if we are paying attention to the exceptions. We have to start paying attention to what's really going on as a whole, you know, and I'm an exception. So you can't You can't look at what what I do when it's too few. Like, we have to see the majority of women right now are not subservient. They think that they are tens when they're not. They think they're owed the world when they're not. And, men, a guy can be a wonderful man just because he doesn't have a six figure, but all these women think that they deserve six figures. What is that? 1% of the entire population? It's just, it's what, as a Rich, the masses right now, that's why marriage is dying, because women are not subservient. And I think that's really what femininity is, isn't it?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of contributing factors, beyond just, subservience subservience sounds so wrong and hurtful to a lot of people, especially women that are like, they're on that steady diet and drunk on the Kool-Aid of egalitarianism, and we're equal and we're a team and all that sort of stuff, which is why I was sort of challenging Kelly on that notion a little bit, because I said earlier, like, how do you respond to the notion that women are beauty objects? And you're like, well, it kind of hurts, but here I am, sitting before you, and you're all dressed up. You've put some thought into your outfit. You've got your makeup and your earrings and your eyelash extensions. Like you've set yourself up right. Like you've put effort into beauty tonight.
That's on me. Though. That's on me. I love getting ready. I'm going somewhere after this, so that's part of the reason. Mm-hmm. But I work all the time, and so I don't get dressed up for that because I can't. Mm-hmm. And so it's, when I want to go out, I want to look good, or if I'm on camera or whatever, I want to look good. That just helps me in my own. I don't dress for anyone. I dress for myself. Mm-hmm. I love fashion. I love clothes. So just because the way I look doesn't prove anything.
What's really interesting about this conversation we're having, just put a quick pause on this for everybody listening and the panel. What Rich and I are saying is that we're not even mad about this. We are saying that's female nature. It's as if it's like getting mad at water for being wet, or for the sun for burning your skin when you go outside. Mm-hmm. And there's such a fight for, like, we're not calling women gold diggers. We're like, no, that's acceptable. I understand that as a man, if I stop doing what I need to do, stop chasing excellence, stop taking care of myself, let my shit fall apart, why do I deserve, or how have I earned a woman's companionship and for her to stay with me? I mean, the men that are crying about gold diggers are the ones that think that they deserve this unconditional love from a woman no matter what they do. And all we're telling men is you have the burden of performance, and it's up to you to earn that every single day. So it's always interesting to me, because people think Rich and I come with these conversations like we're, we hate women, but we're saying, no, this is female nature. And guess what? That's okay.
We're also trying to show you a side that it's like the whole, you don't know what you don't know sort of thing, like stuff in your blind spot. Like, you only see so much in life, and where you go and what you do and the choices and all that sort of stuff. But once you figure out the assessment process with human beings by looking at their results in life and how they hold themselves out, you can then determine the choices that they make and what their belief system looks like, right? Like, it's a sequence of events that sort of like goes down to the inner core of the human being, right? So when I'm posing a question or making a statement like, what do you think of the notion that women are beauty objects, and then it causes pain and hurt with you, I get curious, like genuinely curious, like, okay, well, why? Why is that statement? Like, why do you call men and women on a long-term basis, if they're going to get into marriage, a team? Like, how does that work? Like, how does that model work in a long-term relationship? And I'm looking to sort of explore those questions with you, Kelly.
I mean, just, I've been called an object before, and like, it's not a compliment. It's not necessarily, maybe not a dig, but it still hurt. Like, I didn't cry about it that night.
What would you like to be recognized for if it's not beauty?
I mean, my intelligence. I'm funny as hell. Like, I've been called, I know I'm a good person because my dad raised me for the most part, but like, I hear my friends, or even just strangers, I meet friends at Walgreens, CVS, and they're like, you're such a nice person. I'm like, thank you. Like, thank you. And like, I don't take that to the head. I don't think I'm a 10, but it's just like, it's not just beauty. Women have so much to offer.
And I don't think that we're distilling it down to just beauty, but that's the primary reason why, like, if you're out there dating and you know, your object is, you know, to find a relationship that might lead to something, or marriage or children or any of those things, you must understand that men are looking at you first and foremost for your beauty, though, right?
I mean, that's the first impression. Yeah.
Did you go to college or like university or anything?
Yeah, I went to A&M.
Did you have a, you know, like a degree?
I do not. I'm not finished yet.
Okay, so like most people, when they get a degree, they'll put it on the wall. It's got little letters after the name. It's got mahogany. They, you know, they're very proud of it, sort of thing. But intelligence or comedy or, you know, accomplishments in work are not like, there's no guys, like if Moff and I are sitting down having a drink and a beautiful woman were to walk by, he wouldn't lean over and whisper at me and go, "Oh yeah, look at the degree on her," or "I bet she's really funny," right? But the compliment generally goes in, you know, what you're wearing and how you look, right? So I guess what I'm asking you here is
impression, though. You can't help that. Like, should I wear a hoodie that covers my face?
No,
so they talk to me?
No, that's not what I'm saying. But
no, I know you're not.
It's like how men are success objects to women, right? I don't get hurt when a woman says, "Well, I want a successful guy." Women have a long laundry list of demands, generally speaking, when it comes to men, especially for long-term relationships, or if they're gonna have a family and kids and all that sort of stuff. He's got to be tall. He's got to be funny. He's got to be competent. He's got to be unselfish. He's got to be humble. He's got to be alpha. He's got to be amazing in the bedroom. He's got to be able to all these things. But it's predominantly just distilled down to men must be a success object. And I think that's completely okay. And men should surrender to the notion that that's how women typically look at men. So I'm curious from the women on the panel now is, does the notion of me saying that men are success objects, is that offensive? Is that something that you don't co-sign? Is that something that bothers you? Or do you like that notion?
No, I mean, I don't think the beauty object thing is bad either, or the success object, because it just is what it is. Like, we are women, we are beautiful. So like, why not use it? Like, this is how it is in society. This is how we're viewed. Like, use it as a power, use it to empower yourself. And it doesn't mean that you're an object. It just means, okay, this is the role that we've been given as humans, as women.
Yeah, you can substitute object for role, or
so like,
it's interchangeable.
Let's just,
but
use it. Like, we can.
The key word is beauty versus success, basically, is what I'm saying. Yeah,
but we can use our beauty to gain success in whatever way we want, and like be our best selves and be our healthiest selves. And men can use their role of being successful to get wherever they want to be in life. So I think that's just how it is to be a man and a woman. We're just different that way.
Like, I mean, the same question you, Selma, but I find it interesting that when women are offered an opportunity to be on the cover of a magazine, you know, for example, or to showcase something, the first thing that they do is they don't write like stand-up comedy lines. They put on something nice that exposes skin, and they sell stuff, right? Like, because they're beauty objects. Like Gia, like, you've got a large following, and you basically built that large following off modeling and fitness modeling and all that sort of stuff, right? That's how men turn to you. That's how culture and society sort of turns to you, is they look to you for that sort of stuff, and you respond in kind by providing, you know, marketing opportunities to companies that have supplements, nutritional products, exercise lines, all that sort of stuff, right? Like, does that make sense?
So I think that if people start seeing it as men, the reason why they do notice beauty and they see a beautiful woman is because that is who is going to have their kids. Like, they're thinking biologically, you know, instinctively. They're seeing you as, okay, what type of child would I have, right? So if he sees you as a beauty object, that's not a negative thing. You have to kind of like change your perspective on his view. And then him being a success, you know, we want as women somebody, if you look, you know, hundreds of years ago, a man who was status, he was a warrior, right? He could protect you. He could look over you. So I think it's just perspective. It's how we need to start looking at things, you know?
Selma?
You disagreed with them, but then now you just backed it up with you agree with both sides.
I'm sorry, what?
So like, when they asked initially, it's like you agree with, you know, the statements of women and men, and you disagreed with them, and then you basically just agreed with them just now.
So yes, I'm agreeing with them. I'm saying that you shouldn't see if somebody sees you as a beauty object, you have to understand the male perspective. It's not a negative thing.
No, I understand. Yeah.
Selma, what's your take on that notion with men being success objects and women being beauty objects? How does that sit?
Yeah, I completely agree with exactly what Gio was saying, in that there's a biological inclination towards looking at women. That's why if you look back at like statues and things like that, women had the big curvier hips because they're more mother-bearing hips and things of that nature. Those are the things that are idealized for men, and it's literally just a biological reaction 9 times out of 10. And I don't take it as an insult, and I think it's a big challenge for females, especially, that, and something that I've had to work on is understanding that being viewed as a beauty object, and I think the issue that maybe Kelly and other people, and maybe instinctually I even had with you originally, and with some of your perspectives, was that it often minimizes the capabilities and the attributes of women, in that if you summarize it in such a quick soundbite, you're minimizing all the attributes and contributions of a female partner in your life to one internally locused thing. So there's internal locus and external locus of what the focus is. And then we can go, and I remember I'm pivoting, never mind, going back. So like, even when you were talking about, the contributions to you in your relationship, if you're just saying, I only care about the beauty aspect, the external. So then if you're procreating with somebody, you have a kid with somebody, if you have a kid with somebody and you only care about the beauty, she is the most like chef's kiss, beautiful woman in the world, but then you don't expect anything else from her. You don't expect her character, her integrity, her into your child as well, or is she purely serving the role of the visual?
You're asking that as a
misrepresentation of what that means. Go ahead, Rich.
But I mean, yeah, to be clear, so you're asking that as a question?
Yeah.
Well, first and foremost, I think beauty cues are what men are evolutionary predisposed to like, right? Like there's symmetry, there's hip to waist ratio, there's breast size and fullness, lip fullness. Like these are all attraction cues that we, as a function of evolution, would be drawn to. The notion of, is she funny? Is she, is she virtuous? Is she a good person? Does she have a good family? These are all things that are like more recent, right? We would, and still to this day, I mean, men and women make these mate choices based on fundamental hardwiring in our DNA. To say that hypergamy is evil, like, as an example, some guys get really pissed off and like, well, women aren't choosing me. They're choosing the tall, broad shoulder, rich, successful guy with the Lambo over there with a nice, watch on his wrist. That sucks. Hypergamy blows. I can't beat this. And they, boom, like, they get all upset. That's just a feature of women's mate selection. If they didn't choose a guy that's competent, that can make it rain, that has resources, that has influence, that is a leader, then it could spell death for her and her children. Not today so much, but 10, 20,000 years ago, the potential existed. But we haven't changed that much. Like we're still just monkeys. We just figured out how to make roads and create StreamYard links and podcasts and all this sort of stuff with microphones. Like we're still essentially primates. So there's certain things that I encourage people when I have these conversations to like, well, that hurts, or that feels wrong, or why is it that way? And it's like, I want to challenge those notions with these podcasts and having these conversations, because I think it leads to interesting conversations, enlightenment, discussion, and all of those things. So back to your point of, selecting women. Yeah, first and foremost, I'm looking at her beauty 100%. Then as time goes on, and you spend more time with her, like you look at other qualities and traits, like, does she have culinary skills? Does this woman know how to cook? Right? Because if I'm going to have children with her, is she going to be able to feed them? Is she going to be able to feed me while I'm out, hunting and gathering or whatever sort of thing? Like this is how we're predisposed to sort of think. So do those things matter? Sure, they matter, but they don't matter as much of the optics of beauty and attraction from the get-go, because at the end of the day, there's people that are like, oh, well, I'm sure she's got a really nice personality, or like you can learn to love her, sort of thing like that. But you can't bang a nice personality, right? what somebody looks like first and foremost is what draws you in. And it's the same thing with women, you know, to men, right? Like there's women that try to get involved with guys that might have a nice personality, or they dismiss certain prerequisites that they might have. And then that just leads to disappointment and breakups later on down the road, which don't need to happen if, you know, if you first and foremost set these minimum requirements to be set. I'm not talking about the long laundry list of the 621 things that most modern women have today. I'm talking about fundamental basics, right? Like,
so I think the area of opportunity I'm experiencing from listening to, you know, your perspectives and how you're educating the people that follow you are that, you know, you perceive yourself as a high value man. You call yourself a high value man. You call yourself an alpha.
I've never called myself a high value man.
We don't use those words.
One podcast I listened to, there was a podcast that I literally, whatever, doesn't matter. Whatever. You talk about those values, those core values.
It's for culture and society to decide what I am, how it is that they see me. I don't tell them how to see me.
I love that. I can appreciate that.
I
would be curious.
We'll come back to you in a sec, Kelly.
I'd be curious of what, because I think my core issue that I'm having and I'm blocking here is that I feel like you're minimizing the importance of both roles. I believe man is head of household. I believe in traditional masculine and feminine. I am full believing of all that. And something that I just feel like you're minimizing the female contribution. And we can talk about for family dynamics or just in relationship in life. I don't care. But
what do you mean by minimizing the female contribution? What do you mean by that?
I think sometimes how it's summarizing is that beautiful. You have to be an asset on their arm. You have to be that. And I'm not disagreeing with your innate biological reaction to you wanting to find someone who is good to procreate with, because I believe in that as well. But you're minimizing to that's the stopping point. And then you're like, oh, well, maybe then yeah, you can think about their culinary skills. But women are so much beyond the scope of, yeah, can you fuck me? And then can I make you a sandwich? I think it's so much beyond that scope, and I feel like you keep pigeonholing women into that scope.
I really hope you guys enjoyed that clip. If you want to watch the full-length podcast, you can find that over here, that clip's from. If you're newer to the channel, make sure you hit subscribe over here, and pin down below in the top comment, you'll find a bunch of useful links to my website, my supplement line, books, and a bunch of other stuff. Have an amazing day. Peace out.